What's up 3D designers, welcome to this new video. Today's video is actually a follow-up to the last video, so if you haven't watched it yet, you can go ahead and watch it now. So what we want to do today is we want to actually take the geometry that we created in the last video and we want to shade it and render it inside of Blender. And without further ado, I would say we can just jump right into Blender. So I have the Blender scene opened right here. And you can see just a really simple cube that I have in here, and it's sort of like a background for my scene. So I have a camera, and I don't want the camera to look into nothing, and I just have this background cube. Then I have two lights, a bigger light from above with a power of 178.3 watts, but you can just play around with that. And I have a smaller light on the left side. You can also place it on the right side if you want. And it has a lower watt percentage, so it's just 69.4 watts. And we then have the camera. The camera has a 90mm focal length, and I have no depth of field enabled. And if we take a look through the camera, we can see that it's basically like facing upwards a little bit, so it's rotated along the x-axis. So I also set the camera to be 1920 by 1920 pixels because I liked to have a little bigger ratio than usual. So I actually put the render on my behance. And yeah, so that's it for the camera. As you can see, we also have this object that we created in the last video in the middle right here, and I have some text which I just created with normal text generators. So if you hit Shift A and you go down to text, you can create text and also select a bevel for that and that sort of stuff. And I have just like 3 different texts, and they are basically copied onto each other. I thought this look would match the surrounding. So that's what I did for this, the quick scene setup. And now we want to get to the materials. For that I'm gonna switch into our camera. You can always do this by hitting 0 on your keyboard. And let's just tick those overlays off and hit render. So this is how the scene looks. Of course, I haven't talked about the materials yet, but I will do this right now. So if we take a look, as you can see, I chose the same material for the surroundings as for the text in here. And this material, I just basically took a color. You can choose whatever color you want. So make it red, make it pink, whatever you like. I'm just going to leave it at the green value for right now. And then we have just some normal roughness at 0.5. I just left that at default. We have we don't even have a lot. The most important thing about it is actually the subsurface scattering. Subsurface scattering means that if light hits the surface, you can basically see through the object a little bit. So you have those areas where the color isn't like 100% same color, but you can see like how the light is interacting with the surface. So, and I think that's already it for the materials. As I said, it's actually very easy to set up. Okay, so maybe for a quick note, the render settings. The render settings were actually also pretty straightforward. So I just said that I want to render this image out at 500 samples, and I also want to have some denoising, and I chose optics denoising. Optics denoising, however, is only an option if you have an RTX graphics card. So if you don't have that, you won't be able to check optics. You might have to go with the NLM or the Open Image Denoise. But of course, you could also not use the denoiser, but rather render at more samples. But this is of course going to increase your render times by a lot. So you can just render this out, and you then get an image. And I have already rendered out the image right here. Now we just want to do some post-processing inside of Photoshop. I already opened a new scene file, and the scene file has a size of 1920 pixels by 1920 pixels, the same size as our rendering that we did. And we can then just drag in the image that we rendered. And next thing that we want to do is change over to our layers. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but my layout is in German, so you have to bear with me here. I think you will find the right settings in the English version if you're using the English version of Photoshop. So we have this layer right here. It's actually still a smart object, but that doesn't matter for our case. We just want to do some adjustments, and the first adjustment I would make is to adjust the levels. So as you can see right here, these are our curves for the levels, and you can just drag up the highs. So these are the white tones. You can just drag them downwards a little bit, so it just matches this little hill that you can see there. And on the other side, for the black tones also, you can also match this about here. And now that we've done that, I think we can add another adjustment layer, and we will add a dynamic adjustment layer, so that just strengthens the whole colors in our scene. So we can just pull that up to whatever you like, and also maybe some saturation. And that's already it, I think, for our color correction. One last thing I did in order to improve the look of my image was I added some noise. So we will go up here and we will select some noise. We want to add some noise. So take this, and I would just say 1.5 for the strength of the noise, and then say OK. And yeah. So with that being said, that's already it for today's video. I really hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.